phase of Moon.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. My name is Blake Cousins, and Third Phase of Moon is a top UFO channel in regards to the phenomenon going on around the world right now. We're going to be speaking with alien abductees, taking calls from around the world, and hypnotic regression specialists. If you want to call in and speak to Third Phase of Moon right now, you can call 347-934-0378. Calls are coming in right here to Third Phase of Moon. And last week, we spoke with David. He went by the name of Mark, but he decided to come out forward with his real name. And he was talking about his encounters starting from the age of 3 years old up till 14. He has been abducted. And, his parents really didn't believe him. His friends didn't believe him. And I'm sure this is quite, the case when it comes to people wanting to tell their stories. It's just nothing but ridicule. And we have a hypnotic regression specialist. John, you've spoken with her. Can you introduce who we're going to bring right here on Third Phase of Moon?
Yes, Yvonne Smith is a very famous hypnotherapist. She's been doing this for more than 2 decades. Several hundreds, if not thousands of regressions, hundreds and hundreds of abductees. She actually formed a support group for the abductees to have somewhere to turn to and to actually relate the story to. And she's a key figure in this, people coming out and people coming together and getting this information out there. We are privileged to have her here tonight, Blake.
All right. Well, let's, without further ado, let's bring on Yvonne. Hey, thanks and welcome to Third Phase of Moon. As far as ridicule and, people taking it that they're crazy, people are crazy coming out with these stories, what do you have to say about this, first of all?
Thank you for having me, first of all, on the show. I'm very happy to be here. After doing this for 22 years now, there is definitely something happening to perhaps millions of people around the world. I mean, this is a physical event. People are taken physically out of their natural environments, taken to, we'll say the spacecraft, wherever that may be, examined, tested, and then brought back. People wake up overnight with very strange marks on their bodies. They wake up with the feeling of flu-like symptoms. I talk to people on a daily basis. I have new people coming to me every day, and this happens everywhere. I mean, all over the United States, all over the world. So, this is why I established Close Encounter Resource Organization 20 years ago, or 21 years ago. And then I just opened up a new branch of CERO called CERO International, which is, we strive to keep the UFO phenomenon out there in the mainstream public and mainstream media, because we feel that this is really too important. This is happening to so many people. And even the people that are skeptical about this, I guarantee you that somebody they know and somebody in their own family, perhaps themselves, and maybe that's why they're so skeptical, have had encounters.
Yvonne, what would be your first advice to someone that has been abducted and wants to come forward and tell their story?
The first thing is just think about it very carefully. I mean, unfortunately, even though we're in 2013, there's still a terrible stigma with this, but this is why those of us who have been doing this for a long time, we keep doing it, because we want to bring it out, just keep it out there. And hopefully this will be known just now as children who are being abused and, domestic violence. Nobody wanted to talk about those things years ago. But be careful before you come forward, because it's per se coming out of the closet. People have to be careful of their jobs, of their careers. Unfortunately, you do have to support yourself and pay your bills. And it's something to think about, because I have known people who have suffered because they came forward. They lost their jobs, or they weren't promoted because of it. So, it's something to really, really consider. But I know people who are in my own support group, and I've known for many years, they felt that they needed to come forward because they knew there were people out there who were in pain just like they were, not knowing where to go and who to talk to. And I know this happens all over the United States. So people who do the kind of work I do were very few and far between. So choose carefully the therapist you do go to. Make sure they are versed in this work, and they are well trained in hypnotherapy. It really is something to be very careful about.
No, that's good advice. Right here at Third Phase of the Moon, I've spoken to many people that have come forward for the first time and actually come here public right here on the radio in regards to their abductions. And I think right here at Third Phase of the Moon and shows like this and people telling their stories is a good therapy to just get started and kind of film and feel what it's like to get out there in the public. I think we have an area code 323, a caller in about possible abductions. Do you have any questions for Third Phase of the Moon?
Hello, actually this is Jacqueline. I've called into the show before, and I actually am a part of Zero, and I have been regressed by Yvonne.
Welcome to the show, Jacqueline. Yeah, you came on the show about 3 weeks ago. The video went viral. Everybody wanted to hear about the story of, you were being abducted for hybrid breeding is one of the, the shocking claims that you claimed.
So, I guess the last time I was on, I talked about my regression with Yvonne and about how in the hybridization program of what I recall and I remember is that I'm actually being paired up with somebody who is a human hybrid, so they appear human, and the extraterrestrials that I seem to be being abducted by are human-like, so they look like they are human. And I know that there are different types of extraterrestrials, and I'll let Yvonne talk about that, but not everybody's being abducted by the same type of ETs.
There's been some theories that's been floating around, and I'm sure they've been around for many, many years, but it was the first I've heard of it just, a few weeks ago. An Illuminati expert, underground, been in the underground, working to gain information for over 25 years, and he says the reptilians developed the gray aliens, as worker bee soldiers, and they're basically half robot and half living organism. Is this a theory that's new, or have you come across this as well, Yvonne?
Well, I'm not sure if if that's totally true. Certainly, I have heard many accounts of the very small gray aliens. We describe them as gray with large dark eyes, 3 feet tall. Those are the ones that are the abductors. They're the ones that take the person out of their natural environment and will say up to the craft. They are what we refer to as the worker bee. So very, this could be very, very true. There's so many stories out there that you really need to separate the wheat from the chaff, in other words. So I don't believe everything that I hear out there. All I can go by is my research and research of my, colleagues, and I worked with the best of the best in the field. I mean, Dr. John Mack, Bud Hopkins, who was the pioneer of abductions, Dr. David Jacobs, who we still work together now. But once the people get on and we'll say the craft, sometimes they feel they're underground, but we'll say the craft for the purpose of simplicity. They will be up there. They will be, put on tables to be examined. This is very, very typical. But while they're there, they will see other types of beings, as Jacqueline had referred to. They will see the taller grays. They look very much like the small ones, but they're taller, say about 4 to 5 feet tall. Then they will describe the praying mantis type or the insect type. Very, very tall, much taller, very spindly and thin. They will also describe the tall gray type aliens with Dracula type capes. They will wear capes or types of uniforms, very tight-fitting uniforms. Also, a very human type alien is described, and we were, years ago, back in the day when I started, we called them the Nordics. They were very perfect type of being, and now we feel that these are the perfected hybrid beings, where they could be walking among us, and I think they are walking among us at this point, where we don't really notice them until we have one-on-one contact, and there's something about these beings that's different, as if they could read our minds or look right through our souls. So there are many, many types of beings with different agendas, different jobs to do while they're on the craft. They're seen working together. There's also humans on the craft working alongside the beings. I've had the privilege of working with Jacqueline during her regression. We're hoping to do more because when we do this work, you could never do just one session because this is an ongoing experience. It starts in childhood and it follows the person throughout their lives, and it follows the family line as well. It is intergenerational.
We've all seen, I don't know if everybody's seen it, I hope not, the movie, The Fourth Kind. Was this an honest representation of what's really going on?
Absolutely not. I mean, this film was presented as a documentary, which I thought as a film it was well done. It was, as a film, it was presented very well as a documentary style, very realistic. But in researching this case, none of us who have been in this field for many, many years have ever heard of the Nome, Alaska case or this Dr. Tyler. And if this case were a real case, we would have known about it. Just like the famous cases of, say, the Roswell incident or Kecksburg in the 60s. We would have known about it, and believe me, I would be the first one to want to fly to Nome, Alaska to research and talk to these people personally. But what was really frightening in this movie is that the regressions, the hypnosis was presented as if someone was going to be levitating and they were going to be speaking in tongue. To me, it reminded me of an exorcism. And believe me, I had clients email me and call me and say, oh, my God, if I go undergo regression, is that going to happen to me? Is my back going to be broken? Or, and it was really terrible because I had to really dispel a lot of these myths. So when you watch a movie, you just have to watch the movie for entertainment, but know that, there's reality behind the scenes where this does happen. But people out there making these movies, their first goal, I feel, is to make money, and that's unfortunate. But we're striving to get out there and make documentary type films, true documentary type films that are realistic in what someone goes through. Someone like Jacqueline goes through when they're abducted.
Jacqueline, can you tell us about, or recall and tell our viewers and listeners about your first experience and how you felt afterwards of the alien abduction?
My first actual experience or my first regression?
Your first actual experience that I'm not exactly sure or aware of the exact history. Were you aware of being abducted before your hypnotic regressions?
I started to become aware a few years ago when I started to hear stories of other abductees, and I thought, oh, that's very experiences. Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so I started to hear about other people's experiences, and I thought, oh, that's very similar to my dreams, very similar to my experiences, but that's not happening to me. So I was in denial for a long time. It wasn't until I read Kim Carlsberg's diary, who Yvonne actually worked with, and that's where I found out about Yvonne, and I realized, okay, this is happening to me. And when I started to read on other things and do more research for myself, I started to understand that all the strange experiences and phenomenon that had been happening to me since I was a child was related to this. And I started to kind of open myself up to my own memories and realize this has been happening to me since I was a child. So I can remember as far back as when I would stay with my grandparents, and at night the shadow beings would come out and hold my hand and walk me through a wall. And we would go into this almost other realm. And even as an adult, I would try to think back to that and think, whatever happened to that extra room or realm in my grandparents' house? And never really quite could understand until now that I understand what's happening to me. I know that that's what was going on. I was probably being taken as a child at a very young age. So that's about as earliest as I can remember. And I was probably about 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, we've heard many times over and over that, it starts out as a young age. They're seeking out young children, to make friends with in the beginning and possibly have other agendas. And I've heard through people that call in from around the world, one in particular from Holland. She claims that her children were abducted by the Illuminati for satanic worship, and Dracula is a legend that compares to these aliens could be possibly demonic in ways. Is there any kind of evidence that that there is some kind of possession going on and it has to do with demons? Has anybody ever kind of come across that in your hypnotic therapy sessions?
I have to say no. This has nothing to do with demonic possession. Demonic possession in the dark side, it's totally separate, totally different. I have a very good friend, and he's a minister, and he has witnessed actual exorcisms. And years ago, when I started Zero, my support group, in my living room, back in the early days, he came to our meetings because he was very interested in the UFO work, and he told me, he said, Yvonne, I walked in, and if I had any inclination that these people were possessed or had anything to do with demons, he said, I know what that is. The back of my hair will stand up, because he's been in the presence of the dark side, and he said these people have nothing to do with that. This is totally separate. So, I really caution people, and I know that in all my experiences in the last, 2 decades, people that are very, very into their structured religion, and and whatever anyone believes in, I respect it. But I've noticed that people that are very much into their structured religion, they will tell me that I'm dealing with demons, and I'm bringing the demons forward, and it really has nothing to do with it. People like Jacqueline and thousands of people that I've worked with have never described anything as being possessed. That is separate than alien abduction. We're dealing with beings perhaps in another dimension, in another planet. We don't know yet. It could be all of the above. But they're in no way, I don't feel they're in any way evil. Everybody asks me, are they good or they're bad? Are they black or they're white? We can't put them in that type of category or in that little box. We have to step out of the box and think out of the box, because we're dealing with something that is much bigger, and they have an agenda that we still don't have any idea where this is going to lead us. So, I caution everybody out there to please separate the demon, the demonic possession, and alien abduction. And this is why when I watched Fourth Kind, and when people were calling me and emailing me, because it was very similar to being possessed, and I took exception to that, because that's, this is my work, and my clients and new people coming to me were very alarmed by this. In the 22 years, I've never had anybody possessed. I've never had anybody harmed by going through hypnotic regression.
Yeah, in the movie, it claims after some of these hypnotic regressions that they're dealing with spinal injuries, and they...
Yeah, oh no. No, in fact, hypnotic regression and hypnotherapy is very, very healing. I have never had anyone in my 22 years come to me or write me or call me to tell me that they regretted doing the work they did with me. In fact, they were able to go on with their lives and live productive lives. This phenomenon does not stop. It may lay dormant for a while. I wish I could stop it. I've had people over the years ask me if I could stop it for them. I don't have that kind of power. All I can do is assist someone in incorporating this experience in their everyday lives and just learn to live with it. And many of them feel that they've grown stronger and more spiritually because of the experience. Although, when they do have subsequent abductions, it could be still very frightening. But then they're aware of, okay, this is what's happening. I know I'm going to be okay. I'm going to try to go with it. Because they know they're not able to stop it.
We've had an experience in 2010. A friend of ours invited us to come over to his place to visit him because he said that UFOs were coming over his house 3 nights in a row, and we got to bring our camera equipment. And we decided, it was our birthday, it was December 30th, 2010, and we took him up on the offer, and another fella showed up, and he wasn't quite, all together. Kind of a guy that, a shady kind of fellow, you would say. Mm-hmm. But basically, shit hit the fan, and, the video's out there. Dr. J. Andy Elias saw the video, and this person and everybody had a kind of a life-changing experience. We took it as something enlightening, and we're really happy that we experienced something like this. But the other man, he cleaned his whole life up. He cut his hair, he got off the drugs, and people still to this day says he's never the same, and he's an all-new person now. Dr. Jandy, have any questions for our guest tonight?
Yeah, Yvonne, you mentioned some of the races that were there. I've also heard about the Greys, the taller ones being more in control of the younger ones, or the smaller ones.
Yes.
That they're possibly hybrids of some kind of biomechanical robots. But has anyone ever mentioned other species that you could describe for us?
There's also the tall white beings. They're very, very light, very white. Actually, some of them are described as being illuminated within themselves, like light beings, I guess you could call them. There's been, other. I'm trying to think of top of my head right now of other types besides the light beings. The very tall. People have come across a very tall female-type being with a long white gown. She seems to be the one that soothes the person and makes the person feel safe and more comfortable in the situation.
As the healer, in some essence.
Pretty much, yes. The one that's described as a tall praying mantis type, often wearing a cape and performing the examinations, that one seems to be in charge quite a bit, and that figures very prominently in many of the cases that I've worked with. But there is definitely a chain of command when they're taken aboard. definitely.
Also, we spoke to Dr. David Jacobs recently, and he was talking about hybrids infiltrating the Earth and how each generation of abductees, who specifically the females that were given a fetus put inside them and then removed after a few months, each generation of hybrids has looked more and more like a human. Do you think it's possible that right now there are millions of them walking among us that we literally can't see, can't recognize?
I don't know about millions yet, but I do feel at this point that they are walking among us, because I have spoken to people who feel they've come across someone who was not quite human, but yet they're able to walk among us. At the last chapter of my first book, Chosen, I wrote about this woman who, and this is in the 60s, this was right after the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, where she feels she came across a very unusual person. I mean, she didn't feel threatened by him, but he was so different that when he looked in her eyes, she felt that he was looking right through her soul, like he could read her thoughts. And this was back in the 60s, but he looked like the typical at the time we called Nordics, but now we're calling them hybrids. But he was very well groomed and tall, and just nothing that you would feel threatened about. So I thought that was very interesting, because it was way back then, but I'm getting reports now of people coming across these hybrids. And I know David Jacobs, who I know very well, also has many cases of people coming across them and being contacted by them, where they are supposed to train them, in other words, to live very simply among us. I mean, teaching them how to shop and how to dress. And, this sounds just very highly strange, but he's getting these types of cases.
No,
I got a question for you. What do you think their agenda is, trying to infiltrate us without openly telling us who they are?
Gosh, that was my question when I wrote Chosen. I mean, it could be a very frightening thought of, are they producing these hybrids to, live among us here for whatever reason? Maybe they can't live on their own planet. Their planet is dying, as one of the theories. Or are they here as, like a invasion of the body snatchers type of scenario? Are they here to take us over? I would hate to think that, but, at this point we don't know. I mean, that's been the million-dollar question. We just know that they definitely have an agenda. I don't feel that they're evil in any way, but I also don't feel that they're here to save us from ourselves.
The way advanced technology is going, and what you believe about what the future holds, these aliens, they look humanoid in their own way. The grays, the big eyes, they got the large heads. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking they could be possible humans from way in the future. You don't need to speak anymore. You're doing it telepathically. Thus the large skull. They've evolved. They have larger eyes, and they may be coming back from the future to come visit us to, maybe save their future, because they need something they need in our time. There's this amazing, film that Charlie Chaplin movie that came out way back in the day, and they accidentally captured somebody in the foreground, and it looked like they had modern day clothes, and they were actually speaking on a cell phone. Absolutely incredible footage from a Charlie Chaplin movie. What do you think about this theory?
It sounds way out, but I feel anything's possible. I mean, they're obviously very concerned about our weaponry and what we are up to. I mean, back, in the 60s, among all these Air Force bases, and I know we're going to have Captain Robert Salas speak for Zero International in September. He witnessed where a craft came over the military base and shut down all the ICBM missiles. I mean, I think they were giving us a warning or a message that this is just not acceptable. Because we start shooting these things off, it's going to affect the entire universe. And I think that, they are very concerned about what we're doing here. I mean, think about it. In World War II, the military saw what they termed to be Foo Fighters, these green, glowing balls just flying through, and here we were at war, and at that time I feel they were very, very concerned. So that could be, that could be very well true, that they're coming back here because we could affect the future of the universe.
There are some good movies out in regards to that matter, and James Cameron tapped into it with The Abyss, and then the major studios decided to cut his major grand finale scene out. 10 minutes of what the whole alien agenda was up to, what they had in mind for the human race, and the major studios decided to cut it, and now you can watch it in uncut DVDs. But the aliens threatened Earth with 100-foot massive tidal waves, 1,000-foot tidal waves ready to take out the cities if we didn't get our act together. And I thought that was quite interesting that the studios would take this out. Unfortunately, our radio show is running out of time, but I just wanted to ask Jacqueline about what Yvonne has done for her and, for the work that you guys have done together under these hypnotic regressions quickly.
Well, I do want to say, and this is the most important part, it definitely helps you, and then you don't think you're crazy, because none of us are making these stories up, and the first thing that we think when these experiences start to come into play and you start to realize, especially if you're an experiencer when you're awake, sometimes they're just dreams, so you think, oh, they're just dreams, but they're not really dreams, they're really happening, you just remember them as dreams, but then so you start to think you're going crazy. And so the one thing that regression is going to help you with is to realize there's other people out there, there's a professional that you're working with that knows that this is really happening to other people, and it really puts you at ease and makes you feel like, okay, this is really happening, I'm not making this up, I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true, Jacqueline. Thank you. Yes, it's very healing for people. But people out there who are throughout the United States and around the world, I don't know, how many your show reaches, but I've done many shows, and everyone is experiencing the same thing and feeling very alone out there. So just, I caution everybody, just tread carefully and seek out a professional who will be able to walk you through and facilitate you through these experiences, because they are lifelong experiences. I've worked with people for 20 years, have clients for 20 years, because the experience is ongoing. And so thank you for doing shows like you do.
Appreciate it, Yvonne. We receive about 150,000 views a day. We're up to 50 million views worldwide. We try and get the word out, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And the information is going to be in the description when we post this on YouTube on how to get in touch with Yvonne if you've encountered, aliens and you want to get under hypnotic regression and go back to what really is going on.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you, Yvonne. I really appreciate it, and you keep in touch, okay?
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Jacqueline.
Bye, thank you.
Hey, Jacqueline, I appreciate you joining us on Third Phase of Moon for the second time. Unfortunately, it's a short show, but we got some information in. We will have a link to our last radio show that we had with you and your friend Jacqueline, and who was it?
Rachel? Yeah.
So that was an amazing interview we had with you guys, and lots of information, and I'm sure people, if they haven't watched it, you check the link below. Thanks again, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Appreciate it. All right, Dr. J. Andy Elias, let's see. We have a busy schedule coming up in the next week, and you have a radio show we're going to be interviewing. Again, tell us, Dr. John.
Oh, yes, of course, at the other Third Phase of the Moon radio show on Revolution Radio, which is at freedomslips.com. We got moved to prime time, so it's Thursday nights, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This Thursday, April 18th, we have Stephen Bassett, who's going to be discussing the citizens' hearing, which is taking place in Washington, D.C. And then the following week, on the April 25th, we have Richard Dolan. And then on May 2nd, we have Jordan Maxwell. So, you know, Blake, we're going to have a very busy week, a very busy month. And for all those who didn't get to hear enough of Yvonne Smith, she's actually going to be joining us on that station as well on the 16th of May. So in a little over a month and a half or so, a month and a week, she'll be back. And, of course, Blake, we got more stories we got to talk about and work about, and amazing footage to show.
Incredible, and you know, it was humbling for Revolution Radio. What we got thumbs up or voted to be moved into the primetime slot.
That's right. There was a listener vote. Apparently, they love Third Phase of Moon Radio, and they asked us to be moved to prime time, and that's why we moved to Thursday nights instead of Saturday day.
Right. Well, we'll be happy to accommodate that slot. Hey, Dr. J. Andy Elias, I appreciate you joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon.
Of course. You're welcome. Thank you, Blake.
All right. Look forward to speaking to you here real soon. You know, if anybody out there has captured anything amazing in regards to UFOs or have been abducted by aliens, you let us know right here at Third Phase of Moon via Skype or Facebook. Keep your eyes on the skies, and we'll see you again next time.